This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Moms Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions, from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hi and welcome. My name is Felice Gerwitz and this is episode 83, Vintage Homeschool Moms. And today we're going to be talking about creating family memories. But first I'd like to tell you a little bit about my publishing company. Not sure if you know it or not, but Media Angels is the owner of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. That's right, this network where Vintage Homeschool Moms is coming from is owned by myself and Media Angels, my publishing company. I began writing and publishing in 1992 and always thought I was going to write that best-selling fiction book, but instead I wrote a book called Teaching Science and Having Fun, and I considered it an oxymoron because I didn't like science as an educator, as a homeschool mom, or even as a student myself. But I always say God has a sense of humor, and so I wrote that first book many years ago, and it is currently in its 5th printing. So if you want to learn more about Media Angels, go over to mediaangels.com and be sure you sign up for that e-zine as well as the e-zine for Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Why? Because we bring you lots of free gifts and promotions just for subscribers of this e-zine. In fact, I just gave away a great gifts idea. It's a super small ebook, but it's a very wonderful guide to finding the perfect gift for that special person in your family. So we have all kinds of special offers and gifts, and they are timely. If you're listening to this a year from now, that offer may not be available, but we have lots of different ones that we offer. So be sure to sign up and, again, visit mediaangels.com. And also, I'd like to ask you to go over to iTunes, find Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network, or this show in particular, Vintage Homeschool Moms, and give us a star rating. I would really, really appreciate that. We all work hard on this network to bring you podcasts that are timely, that are helpful for you and your family, and that is one way you can say thank you to us, is by going over to iTunes and giving us a rating. So really appreciate that. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, today we're talking about creating great family memories. And I want to tell you a little story, and it starts with my uncle. My Uncle Tony had a very large family. I believe there were something like 15 siblings, and he would proudly show me this black and white photograph. And I was always so touched when I looked at this beautiful picture, because in this picture of smiling faces, of course all in black and white, and this was taken in Italy, so you would see this great family, and I'd always have to search for his mother because she looked like one of the kids. She was this beautiful, very small little lady, and she just had this beautiful smile on her face. And it was a very difficult time for this family. My uncle's father died very young, and I remember him telling me he was a milkman at a very young age, at something like 9 years old. And what he did was he took the family cow, I kid you not, down the street, and he had the cow, tethered to a lead. And he would just stop from door to door, and people would pay him for milk, and they would, either he or they would milk this cow and, get a fresh milk cup or bucket or whatever, as much as this little cow could give, I guess. And, he did this door to door, and he said that was his first job, and it helped to support the family. But one of the things that he taught me, this uncle of mine, is the importance of making memories. And he would recount all of these things that they did as a family, having no money, being very, very poor, living, in a place in Italy at a time under the Mussolini regime that was very oppressed. But yet he had these amazing stories of memories of him and his family, and it turned out that he came to the U.S. and lived the American dream and ended up having holdings in the millions. But what he would always say to me is, make sure that you create those family memories. And that's what I want to talk about today, creating those family memories. So quickly I'm going to go through some things that I want to hit upon today, and things that I've talked about in some of my other podcasts. So I'll probably refer you back to some of those. But the first is, what are your family goals? The second is, memories, going from simple to complex, and I'll give you some ideas for both. The third is budget conscious. What are some of the things you can do on a limited budget? And the fourth is that four-lettered word, and it's T-I-M-E, time, making time for these special things that you want to do. I know we can get so overwhelmed so many different times in our life with things that we want to get done, and there just doesn't seem to be enough time in the day. But this is one of those things that I really highly, highly recommend, that you just take a few minutes. You sit down with your spouse and you talk about some things that you want to do as a family, and that's actually number one. So let's go to that. What are your family goals? And I'm not talking about the goals when you sit down with your spouse and you figure out, what are our homeschooling goals this year. I actually have a podcast on vintage homeschool moms, and I talk about what type of homeschooler are you. So on episode 82 in the show notes, I'll have a link to that podcast there. And I'm not really talking about your homeschool goals here. I'm talking about your family goals. Everything we do in life, we can either plan out or not. And I am not a great planner. So a lot of times when I do these podcasts, it reminds me of things that I have to do. And this is something that I have been making a very, very big conscious effort to do with my family. I have tried really hard in the little pockets of time that we have to work at creating memories, and that's what I want to share with you. And when you talk about goal setting, a lot of times people just don't do it. And when we don't set goals, they're just not going to happen. So it's not going to come about by osmosis. You're not going to have this great family memory that the kids are going to talk about forever if you don't sit down for a few minutes and plan. And, I'm not talking about those things that, as a family, funny things happen and those are the stories you recount like my uncle did, but just something that you are going to, make an event of, that your kids will talk about and share with their friends and also with their family as time goes by. And so sitting with your spouse, having a date night, going out for dinner or coffee or even a walk in the park and just sitting on the bench and figuring out what are the goals that you want for your family. What are some ways that you want to create some of those special family memories? And some of those memories could be a routine that you do as a family. It could be something that is thought out like a family vacation. It could be something that you recommend to your kids that they do. And, it creates a pattern there of something that they'll remember. And agreeing with your spouse is so important because then you're both on the same page. And when this topic comes up, there'll be, help from either spouse. One or the other in your family is the doer, and that's me. I'm the one who, creates the fun events or gets some things in motion. Like, for example, we'd always have, a special pizza night. And I was the one who always instigated it and went and got the food or made the pizza and so on and so forth. And whenever we had pizza, we would typically have popcorn and a movie for dinner. Really high carb there. I did add a salad, but... So whatever that special event was, well, now as my kids have gotten older, that has been something that has fallen on their shoulders. They're the ones that go get the food and go, set up some of the things that we do afterwards. And, as they get older and they tend to have events and different things happening on a Friday night, Sometimes movie night has to move to another night, but it still can. And especially for those of us that do homeschool, we have a lot more flexibility in that regard. Well, I want to take a short break here, and when we come back, I'm going to share with you a couple of more points and then get into some more ideas of things that you can do with your family. We'll be right back. My name is Felice Gerwitz, and I want to introduce you to my publishing company, Media Angels. I have a heart for homeschool families, and since 1994, I have poured my efforts into creating curriculum to support teaching science, especially from a creationist worldview to the homeschool community. My curriculum was selected by Kathy Duffy in her 101 top homeschool picks. Another labor of love is a 3-book novel series specifically for homeschoolers with a creation focus, the Truth Seekers Mystery Series that I co-authored with my daughter Christina. Media Angels represents uncompromising quality, not only with books, but with an online homeschool convention and this ultimate homeschool radio network with amazing show hosts. Along with books, Media Angels has produced an American history and an American government video series, as well as a family Bible study, Homeschooling with Proverbs. It has been my pleasure to mentor countless homeschool families and missionaries worldwide. I also enjoy mentoring aspiring authors with one-on-one coaching and the Information in a Nutshell series. If we haven't met, please reach out. I'd love to help you on your homeschooling journey, or if you have a book, help you getting that into print. I can be found on social media and look forward to meeting you. You can reach me at mediaangels.com. Thanks so much and hope to meet you soon. Hi and welcome back. My name is Felice Gerwitz, and this is episode 83 of Vintage Homeschool Mom, Creating Family Memories. Well, we've been talking about some of the points that I'd like you to cover, or I'd like to cover. Some of the things that I may recommend that you do with your spouse. I already covered the family goals and agreeing with your spouse on how to plan out some of these things. And the second is memories, making memories that are from simple to complex. And I've already mentioned our pizza night. Another very simple family memory that we've created is playing games or game night. And I have to tell you, this is really a labor of love. I do not like games. I don't know why. It's just not something that is a favorite with me. I'm not a card player. I don't like board games. I don't think I ever in my life had finished Monopoly, and I cannot tell you how many times my children have played Monopoly games and had these marathons where they would set up a card table and put the Monopoly game on it and just leave it up there for weeks, and they would continue to play this game. And so, they obviously don't take after me, but it's something that we started when they were younger, and we did play as a family. And so then later on, they took it over, and then they played without me. And that's one of the things I want to share with you, is that when we're creating memories and we're teaching our children, we're starting with them when they're little, we're holding their hands, we're presenting these ideas to them, but then later, when they get older, they take it on, they carry it through, and then they teach others these same things. When my grandchildren come over, I still have games that were my older children's games. And so when the grandkids come over now, they play with my kids. And my kids have so much fun. They'll pull something out and they'll say, oh, I remember playing this and I loved it and da-da-da. And so they're sharing it with, the grandkids. And that's something, that we're doing. We're creating legacies here. Vintage Homeschool Moms is all about mentoring and teaching you to teach your families as well. And I'm always open to hearing from you. So you can email me at felice@mediaangels.com, even going to vintagehomeschoolmoms.com, looking for podcast 82, and commenting right here on this podcast post is something that you can do as well. And just reach out to me and share with me some of the things. I'm sure I'm forgetting some things, or maybe I'm not even aware of some of the wonderful creating memory things that are out there that you're doing with your family. So going to the complex, it could be something like all working on a political campaign. I had a friend who was very politically minded, and she was always involved in different, getting people elected locally on the local level and then even on the state level. And she and her family enjoyed doing that immensely as a family, and that was creating memories. I mean, it could be something, as simple as working on someone's campaign locally to more complex in a vacation. For us, one of our favorite family memories was the time that we had a family reunion. And instead of flying to Tennessee where the reunion was taking place, it was taking place at a state park. We decided to rent an RV, and it was a 10-day trip. And I have to tell you, that was something that the older kids anyway remember. The younger ones were too young for that, and we've talked about doing it again. Our biggest problem is that number 4 point, and that's time, being able to take that much time off from my husband's business. My business is very portable, but his business in particular, to be able to take time off to be able to go on this trip. But it was something that we really had fun doing. We all remembered it, and it was wonderful. But it took an awful lot of planning and some resources there, and so that might not be something that you have the ability to do. Also, we took a trip to New York, upstate New York, where my husband's family lives. And before we went to the place where they lived, I encouraged my husband, since we were flying into Buffalo, to get a rental car and go into Canada, because I spent 3 years of my life living in Canada from 3rd to 6th grade. And so we lived in Ontario, and so it was a small town called Willowdale. And so I wanted to go to Niagara Falls because we lived not very far away from the falls. From what I recall as a child, it was between 30 and 40 minutes away from Niagara Falls. And so we rented a car when we landed, and we went into Canada. We had a hotel. And I remember walking into the hotel, and there was this huge fireplace that was set up, and it was just beautiful. And I couldn't wait to throw our stuff into the hotel room and just walk around with the children. And when my son saw that fireplace, the first thing he said was, "Mom, did you bring the book we're reading so that we could go down and sit by the fireplace and read books?" And I just looked at him, and I possibly said to the children, "What do you want to do first?" And, here's my child so far away from Florida, and he's saying, "Could you read to us in front of the fireplace?" Because to him, that was a family memory. That was something that we did very, very often in the cooler months. Again, I live in Florida, so I hate to share that we do have a fireplace, but we have a real wood-burning fireplace. My husband is a builder, and that was something he wanted to have in this house. And so, we spent many, many hours in front of that fireplace reading books, and lots of great memories of reading Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. And, it was just a wonderful time in our lives of being able to do that. And I know of friends, Mary Jo Tate, who has a podcast on this network, Flourish at Home. She's got adult sons, and I think her youngest is my youngest son's age 14 or 15. And they still read books as a family. So, you're never too old to do that or too young. And it's just something that's wonderful. And again, creating that simple family memory. Another simple family memory for us is routines that we have. Every once in a while, we go to a church on Fort Myers Beach, and so we go to church there, and then afterwards we go to this place that is a pizza place that's right on the beach, and it's not very expensive, and by night, this place is probably one I wouldn't want to go to because it is a bar, but during the day, it's frequented by families, and you are sitting right by the water. I mean, it does have air conditioning, but the windows are all open, and the door and that goes out to a deck that you're right down by the beach, and so it's such a fun time, and we get pizza, and then we go sit out on the beach for about an hour or two, not very long, because of course we are from Florida, and so, Floridians don't tend to go to the beach as much as the people who come to visit. And then on our way home, we stop and we get a frozen drink. Again, it's, as they say, tradition. So the tradition is, church, pizza, beach, and then ices on the way home. So, whatever that is for your family, it's the memory kind of thing. It's something the kids love, that they look forward to, and they talk about. And it was funny because we did this for Mother's Day, and on the way home, my daughter was at that same place, stopping to get drinks. And so even though she has her own family now, this little tradition is being passed along. So again, the memories that you create can be from simple to complex. They can be a routine. They can be game night. It can be whatever, you want to do. And, another thing that we haven't done as a family, but this is what's being done through the extended family and the cousins, and that is they set up a fantasy sports league. So the cousins, who don't even get to see each other very much, have set this up, and the boys all play on this league. I know nothing about fantasy baseball. I know that they do not bet, and I know that's something that does tend to happen on these things, and probably not something you want to encourage, but it was really edifying to me that they included, my kids in this, and it's one of my nieces. So let's get this straight. It's my husband's sister's son-in-law invited my boys. So they're, extended cousins within the realm here. But they've really gotten to know, their cousin a lot better doing this, a cousin-in-law, and it's just been a fun thing for them to do. So let's look at number 3. What is your budget? For some people, you may have a little bit more of a budget than others. I have to tell you, and this is, truth here, whenever we've gone on a very costly extended vacation, I can't remember a time I ever came back and said, I don't need a vacation to recover from the vacation. As a mom, it really takes a lot out of you to plan a vacation, because especially when the children are younger. When it's older, it is a lot better, but there's still a lot of planning to do. So we took a vacation, again, another 10-day trip. This one was to Virginia. So I have a sister-in-law who lives outside of D.C., and we were planning to do the Smithsonian museums, and then we had rented a car. We flew in, rented a car, and drove up to the mountains, and had a cabin up in the mountains, and got to see bears, and, it was really a fun time for the kids, and they got to go hiking. And it was during the fall, so they got to see the fall leaves. And then we went to Williamsburg, and we did the Williamsburg thing. And it was great. But when I got home, my youngest was Michael, who was 4 months at the time. And, my oldest was Neil, and I don't remember, I guess he was around 15 or 16. And I was so drained. I still was a nursing mom, and even though we didn't drive up and we flew and we didn't camp this vacation, it still took a lot out of me. So that's something you have to look at, as a mom. Yes, it was, again, one of those vacations that the kids still talk about. Michael doesn't remember it. And so, you have to look at it and say, what are the memories that you're going to make, and how are the kids going to remember? One of the things I love about vacations and making memories is that nowadays you can go online and for not very much money create one of those memory books. So all those pictures that we have on digital cameras, whoever invented that idea, and the online memory books, I have several of them, and I absolutely love them. I love them better than picture albums. Because they're all theme-based, and they're really small, and you can look through them and then enjoy them. So again, those are things that you can, extend those memories and remember. My favorite thing, especially when we were budget conscious, and this does go into the time one as well. So this one overlaps the two, is day trips. So when you don't have enough time, that is something that works out really well. So you can get day trip books. I know we have them here in Florida. I don't know if every state has them, but these are trips that you can do in 1 day or less. For us, Tampa and Orlando could both be a day trip, but Orlando's a little bit further for us. It's about 4 hours. And so it is a little bit further than Tampa. So one time, a couple of different years, we've gotten season passes to Busch Gardens that has a lot of rides. And so we've done that as a family. And last year, when we did it, by the end of our year, because of course you want to get your money's worth, we were all tired of going. So it will be, several years from now when we do it again, and by that time, my children are older, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do it when we did, before they got into adulthood and were gone. So those work out really well for those times. And then season passes just are a big outlay of cash to begin with, but they really do save you a lot of money, especially if you do some things like eat lunch before you go to the theme park and, pack snacks and things like that, or just get like one thing when you're there, like for Busch Gardens, if you bought the drink container, then the refills were very inexpensive. So as we went, we added more and more cups to our queue, and and by the end, I think everyone had their own cup, and we're not sharing cups, especially being sick. People can't share. So this is like one of those big family things. I laugh as I say that because I have 2 younger brothers, and I have one brother in particular that would never, ever let anyone drink out of his cup, and to this day, he still doesn't. So this would just really gross him out. So if you're one of those people that won't share your cup, you'll have to invest in that extra cup or whatever it is. Okay, so let's talk about the time factor. Who has time to go on 10-day vacations or take a month off like my family did? We owned an Italian restaurant in Winter Haven, and my dad would close up for a month during the summer because living in Florida, we are very driven by a tourist industry. I mean, I walked into our local Costco and I said to Annie, "Where is everyone?" It was freaky. There were, all the carts were lined up. There just were no people around compared to what we normally see no matter what time we go to any of the stores or anything, especially recently. This was a very, very high traffic tourist year for us this year. So, as I'm recording this, it's late spring, almost summer. And so, I was, brought up in a restaurant business. And so that was also very much, we had the locals, but what really drove us was that tourist season. And so in the summer, dead of summer, my dad would close the restaurant for a month, and typically it was right before school started. And we would go away and, vacation for a couple of weeks, and then we would go back home, and he would do some project. He would maybe do some renovations on the restaurant. He was very handy, or whatever it was that he had, some time blocked off to do. And yet I've never in my adult life ever been able to take a month off on vacation or anything like that. So if you are like us and, don't have an extended amount of resources or time, those day trips really come in handy. So look to see what's around. Another way to create memories is to create those special times for your children. And one of them was treasure hunts. And it wouldn't even need to be anything that expensive that the kids would find. But I would do a series of clues. And I typically did this during parties. But you could really do this anytime. And you can do this during a time, when maybe you don't have as much money to spend on, doing something special. And so what I did was I had a series of clues, and they would start with me handing them clue number 1, and then they would read it, and there was something in the note that I wrote that would lead them to where the second clue was hidden and so forth. And I would just hide them throughout the house, outside, in a tree. And one year I think I even had them dig up the buried treasure. It's been, in the back of my husband's truck. Typically they find the treasure outside, and typically it has to be something that includes running, just because running is fun. You could do this at a local park with the children. Just go ahead and hide your clues ahead of time and then take the kids to the park. And again, this is where that, number one, family goals and planning would be fun to do with your spouse, so you could do it together. And it just is one of those things that just, brings those great memories to the forefront, and the children absolutely love. Another one, if you're under time constraints, is to have these impromptu get-togethers. You've got, people that maybe you have family nearby, or you have some friends, and you can just get together for a potluck and, let them know maybe a couple of days ahead of time. Just say, look, the house isn't going to be perfect. For you perfectionists out there, I wish I was one, but I'm not. And so it's really easy for me to have these things where people would come over and we would just get together. And in fact, we were supposed to have one a couple of weeks ago, and nobody could come at the last minute, which was unusual. So, if you can do that, that's great. Again, it doesn't take a lot of money, but it is really something that is fun to do. When you're creating those family memories, remember that there are some things that you should consider, like your goals, whether you're going to be creating simple or complex types of events, what your budget is, and also what your time allowance is. And look at what your child likes, what is within your budget, and look at how you can have fun without spending a lot of money. I'm going to put some notes in the show, vintagehomeschoolmoms.com, and this is episode 83. You'll find some things there. I'm going to just start listing, a few things to look at. What does your child like? Are they into sports or outdoor types of things? Do they like indoor events? Do they, have a specific hobby? Do they like to go on hikes? Are they movie enthusiasts that like to catch the latest movie? Do your kids like to cook? You can do a lot of things around making memories that have to do with cooking. We like to go to the beach, but we like to go to the beach when it's not crowded. So do you have those places that you can go as a family? Some people like to work together and create memories that way, whether they like gardening or building things together. I know my son-in-law does a lot of things in his little wood shop, and the little kids help him do those kinds of things. Right now, one of my sons is building a boat, so he and my husband have been out there. It's mostly my son doing the work and my husband giving advice. So, that kind of thing. Also, events like we've been to retreats together as a family, or even one-day retreats that have been really great, that focus on a specific religious topic. And those are, again, ways to build those memories. And, of course, things like camping is something our family does. Very short amount of time is needed to go camping, which is nice. We can go to the campgrounds that are close to our house, not very far. And so you can look at things like that. Again, whatever it is, whether you're going to a sporting event together, whether it's a movie or just staying home and doing dinner and a movie or pizza night and a movie, make it special for your family. And I ask that the Lord blesses your families as you create these memories, lasting things to pass down for generations. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and thevintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.